All right, we got a pretty cool vlog for you today. I just passed the turnoff where the road splits to either go right to St. Elmo or go left towards Hancock. Took the left fork, and today I've got a meeting over on the Alpine Tunnel on the west side to see the progress of the work that's been going on over there. Give you a full project update, show you around the work site, talk to some of the other partners that have been in getting this project to this point where there's a light at the end of the tunnel, pun intended. We're getting close. Hopefully once this is finished, everything, Hancock, Tomichi, William, West Alpine Tunnel will all be open for use in the future. So here we are rolling up towards the old town side of Hancock. Quiet. I mean, it's still peak summer, August. We're in the middle of the week, obviously, and early, so there's not a lot of traffic. Right there was the site that we removed a camper, abandoned camper last year. Pretty big project. Hauled that, smashed it up, hauled that thing out of here. Get up here to the intersection with Hancock Pass. We'll go up to the summit, see how things look up there. So we're turning right here to head up. This is really nice. I mean, I posted some signs here earlier in the year and they didn't last, and we've had some problems with people going into the project zone, but this is the third sign I've seen notifying people that there is a closure on the other side. There was one down at the Grizzly lot at the bathrooms, and then there was one right down at the Alpine Tunnel parking lot just down below this intersection, a huge board with the closure order, the map, and the reasons why. So if you're coming over this way, there should be no reason why you don't know that the connector down here after the intersection with Tomichi is closed for this project. Here we are, made it to the top of Hancock. Might get wet this afternoon, but we'll have to see. Road looked really good all the way up here. Water bars are flowing awesome. You can see over there to Tamichi. Hopefully I'll have some time to fly the drone this afternoon. Check out the landslide area that we work over every year to keep that pass open. But yeah, let's head down. We'll see if we can get to the project site and go from there. So I'm down here at Sherrod Loop now. We call this Sherrod Loop. I mean, it's kind of just a little bit of a minor switchback on the main road, but this is where the trains, as they would come up the Alpine Tunnel grade, they're basically going in a south direction, maybe a little bit south and east here. And they needed to make a 180-degree turn to head north to continue climbing and gaining elevation up into Tunnel Gulch and to the Alpine Tunnel itself. So, if we fly some aerial footage over this, you can actually see the big bending loop where the rails were laid so that the trains could make this turn. So I'm meeting National Forest Foundation over here. Chad Wellman, Gunnison Engineering. We're going to go take a look up there and see what the project area and the work zone looks like.
So fall 2021, NFF finalized an agreement with the GMUG National Forest for rock scaling and design on this project. Do you have any history of that decision to go into partnership with NFF on this project?
NFF was able to secure grant money and was able to bring that to the table, which we needed in order to complete the project. So we had enough to do 2/3 of the project, and then NFF was able to bring another third to the table. So I think part of it was funding driven.
Yeah, with funding from State Historic Fund and Polaris and the OHV dollars, and our partnership with CORE and the Forest Service, we're able to pile it all together and get it done. So then in winter 2022, NFF raised an additional $121,000 of state, private, and federal funding for design and rock scaling. Then in spring 2022, NFF issued an RFP for rock scaling. So Marcus, I wasn't here when you were a part of that, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell us about how rock scaling went.
So in 2022, the rock scaling was a 2-week project. We had 3 zones for problems. Obviously, the biggest one was above the Big Palisade wall. So we had 4 guys who hand scale. That means they hike up to an area above the scaling location, hang from ropes. They basically rappel down. They hold, a small rock bar, and they just scale as they go down, let the material fall down onto the road. And then the contract crew on the road then moves that off the other side of the road. And we all look like little kids standing at the edge watching big rocks fall off the side of the mountain, which never seems to get boring. So it was a very productive 2 weeks. We didn't have any weather problems. We had minimal public incursions, so we really didn't have to stop work. And we got through all 3 zones. A lot of material came off of those, a lot in the big avalanche section. So we're coming up on the first part.
This was a borrow source for excess material that was going to be needed for road base. So we went through and did some sieve analysis tests, and were able to find suitable material to help fill the MSE wall and for additional fill for road base. So
Nice.
this was probably an original source of borrow for construction of this road.
So when they originally built it, this is probably where they got a lot of the dirt.
Yes.
Yeah. So we drove up right before the Palisade, the Big Palisade wall. This was some of the scale zone. I'll flip the camera down here in a minute. 2 years ago, where we did some of the major rock scaling. And it's right above the first Palisade wall. So we talk about the big one all the time. There's a number of them. And the big one is obviously the most impressive one. That one gets all the attention. But there is a lot of walls here with dry stack stone that was holding this railroad grade up when it was originally built.
And it's holding up great.
So this is the first one that you drive across, and there's a lot of vegetation on the top. So when you're just cruising up here, or maybe if you have in the past, you don't even know that there's a wall here. And there's several of them all the way up to the last couple corners before you get to the tunnel site that you don't even know you're driving across them. Yeah, these sites where the rocks were scaled, it still doesn't look great. I mean, everything on this hillside is somewhat precarious, but the rock scaling did a lot of work to get a lot of loose material off of the mountain here and just make it safer for a work zone.
That makes sense.
That explains.
So these guys are trucking fill from that location that we went past down there as they're building that road back up, bringing that fill back in. We'll go up to the project site and look in a minute, but a lot of laps for equipment. Was this the mesh that you were talking about? GeoGrid, the official name is GeoGrid. Geotextile grid. So tell me again, now that we're up here at the site, exactly what you did with that grid.
So we created, we excavated a ramp down to about almost 18, 20 feet below the top of the wall.
Wow.
So we could remove the loose stone and the beat up stone, and then create a safe working condition so we could start building up the wall. Behind the wall, we came 12 feet away from the back of the wall with the grid, created a nice flat surface, laid the fabric down, rolled it back 6 feet away from the wall at 16 to 18 inch heights, lifts. And we did that, I forget how many right now, but 8 lifts or so, I think.
So several levels all the way up.
And then the last 2 were at 1 foot lifts.
And then you were stacking the outside stones at the same time as you were doing that?
We'd stack up like 3 feet, 2.5, 3 feet, and then without making sure that stone wasn't leaning back, and then we'd backfill and put that fabric. So the fabric's not part of the wall, but it'll maintain the road, and that's the intention.
Right.
And then we compact and everything.
Sure.
The material behind in the sort of like a burrito, so to speak. Compact that, and that material was what was it, 8 inch minus.
Yeah.
Well, looks good.
So
It's
22.
getting very close.
I think our last course of mesh geofabric was 22 inches below the string line.
Yep.
No, below the top of the stones.
Yep.
16 inches below the string line.
And so from that level right there, how much higher do you have to go?
That string is top of road.
Will be top of road.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's roughly 6 inches below the top of the caps.
Gotcha. It's looking good. It's been a lot of years since there was a nice crisp line of caps all the way down that wall right there.
Yep. No, I think it blended in really nice. We've got a
Yeah, we flew the drone earlier and got some drone footage of it. The stonework looks
What's
really,
really cool
really
with that
good.
is you kind of went back and you can see all the way to the peak of the mountain. Just a giant funnel that comes through right here.
right down
It's
here.
not just this right here.
No,
Yeah,
it's a massive funnel.
It's a big
I
funnel.
was wondering, yeah. Oh, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
So tell me, how many stones did you cut last year? Do you have a count on how many you cut up here?
Capstones, I think we made 140 lineal feet, so maybe 70 capstones, rough if it's 2 feet. Like 50, 75 rock, like face stones for the wall itself. Not the
For the
caps.
rebuild part of it there?
Yeah. And when we excavated, we were, from here, there's a lot of rock that's fallen from the top.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good stone in there that we used in the wall, so we didn't even use all that we created last year.
I gotcha.
And I think we even made a few more this year, just to fit. If we had a certain spot, hey, let's get this keystone in. Or headstone.
And then I was always wondering on the excavation, did you find anything cool when you dug down through the road?
Not really. I mean,
Not really?
Not that I can talk about.
Nothing fantastic
a few, maybe a couple spikes.
Mhm.
There's a rail somewhere.
We took them down to the pick and guard station because
okay.
they're going to eventually end up on display up there.
At the museum. Cool.
So there's a couple of those that are 5 feet length or whatever.
Oh, very cool. So some artifacts.
And I think there's a break,
Oh, I didn't see
a
that.
train break.
Oh, really?
Just
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Neat.
A lot of little nails that were probably from dynamite crates. There's more up there.
Mhm.
And I think they got, a lot of the stone that we came across last year that we're creating, there was a lot of stone with the drill marks already in them.
Still in them from up there.
So I think they were getting a lot of stone from that slide.
Yeah.
Like we did.
And that I've heard, so that was the original quarry site, right? Was the intersection is what we've heard
I
from
assume
Williams
so.
Pass?
Yeah.
In that huge rock field there?
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
used some modern technology, but we used the plug and feathers
Yeah.
to split them.
Yeah, we saw some of the photos from
And the shims.
drilling and using those shims. We've split a lot of rock off above here off the road, and we do the same thing. We just bring up a big Bosch hammer drill, punch a bunch of holes, and start pounding wedges and get it to crack. So, yeah, this is very cool. Pretty much just the way it was when it was originally built. So, very nice.
And then behind it, putting all the large rocks in, that still serves as the French drain.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the intent of that rock. Those
Oh,
rocks.
there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was how many hundreds of tons right here?
Yeah.
Just 3 weeks ago, piled up from what we excavated and what was here, what had fallen off.
Yeah.
That's all buried behind the 12-foot
In the
geotextile.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like where that tamper is over there.
Yeah.
There was 15 feet of debris after we had scaled
Oh yeah.
in the height in there, without even including, like you said, just everything that had come down and stacked in this side.
So all that got moved here.
Yeah, it was narrow in
We
here.
excavated everything down, and then
And then
as
that
we were
got
building
put
up,
in.
We were able to use the sludge
Okay.
material behind that 12 feet.
Yeah.
Put it back in there.
And the hope is we catch the water on the surface, get it away from the wall completely. But if something does get through, it still has that French drain effect.
I gotcha. So it's gonna, are those stones marking the ditch?
Yeah, that's my crew.
Outline?
Yeah, I ran out of stakes.
Okay. So it's basically going to go, high point will be outside by the wall,
Yes.
down to where those stones are ditch, and then it'll come on the inside of the road and then exit down there to get it off the road for drainage. Neat. Like this one right here with the drill marks on it.
That's original.
That's original.
And that was popped out, and we brought it,
It was
back
pushed
and
out.
stabilized it
And then this one, and then these ones going down
all the way to the shirt, the flannel that's on
all the way down by that
the tamper. And
tamper is. So these are all new that you cut last year right at the quarry site. And that string that's right here will be basically the road level once all this is built up and compacted.
Yep.
So I'm going to go climb down the side here, get some shots from below the wall. So I'm down on the bottom of the wall. Man, it looks really good. Look at that. See where they filled that in. Stones are a little bit lighter just because they're newer and don't have the environmental wear on it. But that wall looks good with the repair down here. So we're almost under it. Orange vest, right where that repair took place. It looks pretty good. So I'm right below it now where that happened, and these are probably all, were part of that, where the rocks got pushed out of there when that avalanche hit. So this is the Williams intersection. You can see the Williams gate right there. This is the intersection where it comes off of the Alpine Tunnel Road. This right in through here was the original quarry site for all of the Alpine Tunnel stones in the Palisades. You can see there's a lot of big granite pieces, even all the way down to this side, and where they're all standing up there is kind of where they're going to store the extra stones that we showed you that was cut. But this granite is really hard rock, which makes for being able to split stuff better to get nice clean splits. So this one right here, we split this one in 2020 when we were doing work over here to clear up this intersection of Williams and then remove rocks above here on the Alpine Tunnel grade. So you drill holes through that with like a big hammer drill. We use a suitcase generator, and then you put in like basically the original steel style splitting wedges. So you put splitting wedges in there and you pound them and create pressure, and then it'll fracture in a nice clean break like that. So we're not really shaping stone, we were just trying to get rocks out of the road, but you can see how effective that is. And that's the basic methods that Thaddeus was using to recut those stones for the cap and then to rebuild that wall there. So there you go. There's a pretty good tour of the Alpine Tunnel site, the work that's going on. Thaddeus, that crew's doing a heck of a job. Really fortunate to have that level of expertise with the historic stonemason nearby. He's from Salida, to be able to come over here and do that project. And this is kind of a culmination of a lot of people involved. So Chuck Severance from the U-Pass Iron Goats and their club out of Woodland Park. He's a past president in years past there. I was very, very instrumental in working with the Gunnison District, National Forest Foundation, Colorado State Historic grant preparation to really work on this project and get it off the ground. So you have, you know, some grassroots level people advocating to the Forest Service to let us help you figure out a way that we can, you know, get a project moving that's kind of been stalled out for a while, because that avalanche happened in 2016 that damaged that road, and it has been closed ever since to public use on this upper stretch. And then ultimately attracting GAOA, Great American Outdoors Act funding for that. So, you know, we, Corps, U-Pass, and National Forest Foundation applied for an OHV grant. We were awarded that. That's the sticker fund, the OHV sticker fund. We were awarded that in 2021. The money is a year behind, so in 2022, that grant paid for the rock scaling. I was fortunate enough to be over here as the site supervisor for that rock scaling project. Then they got state historic grant money to do some of the work for recutting stones last year that Thaddeus did, and then this year to actually do the road rebuild with GAOA. So all in, you know, basically everything added together for design, all the stuff for this project, the multiple phases, it's about $1 million is what it's all going to total out to do all the work and get that back to being fixed. You know, how GAOA works, you know, big thank you to the Gunnison District. It was Matt McCombs originally was the district ranger when we first started talking about this type of stuff, and it's, you know, Dale Funka now, and she's done a great job of continuing on with this project. But the districts will identify projects and potential projects for Great American Outdoors Act funding, and then they'll send their lists up to the regional office. The regional office will kind of consolidate that and try and figure out which projects are what they call shovel ready. So that means, hey, we've got stuff going on the ground. Like if we put money behind this, it'll just end up into the project, you know, shovels on the ground. It's ready to do work. So the regional office listed Alpine Tunnel as one of those, and then they go out for public comment. You know, the region does to the public and says, which of these projects matter to you? And, you know, thankfully we have Scott Jones, who was representing TPA, Coveco, and CSA, which is Colorado Snowmobile Association, and at the time submit comments in favor of Alpine Tunnel being funded, you know, and telling the region how important this was to users of all types, that, you know, the Alpine Tunnel Road is fixed and reopened. So, you know, that made the final cut list and received GAOA funding to finish this out. So there's a lot of, you know, people involved, a lot of pieces involved with how we get these projects ultimately, you know, funded, everything down from volunteer work up the chain. A big thank you to Tom Metza. He just retired. He was State Trails is kind of split into two parts, the motorized and the non-motorized side of State Trails. And Tom Metza was the motorized program manager at State Trails. And, you know, he's a user just like us. He values these high alpine routes and motorized access all over the state. You know, he helped me a lot during the grant process, and, you know, ultimately this project was funded, and that's kind of what kicked it off, was an OHV grant to start the rock scaling. And then once we'd already done some work and money was being spent, it's a lot easier to advocate, like I said, a shovel-ready project to other entities, to Colorado State Historic Funds, and then obviously GAOA. So a lot of good stuff came together on this project, and really it needed to. I mean, if you're going to get $1 million to complete something and, you know, get a historic wall repaired, this entire road along the old railroad is a historic designated site, which is the only one on the GMUG. And, you know, a lot of things need to line up together. So really thankful to see the progress, really thankful to see that road will be rebuilt by the end of this summer season up here around Alpine Tunnel. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. So yeah, it's pretty cool that that's all happening. You know, it's been a long time coming. I didn't even honestly know if we'd ever see that Palisade rebuilt and the road over top of it being redone. So that's really cool. We'll keep you updated on the finish of this and what the outlook is here into the future. We're going to head back over Hancock. We'll talk a little bit about, on the way, Tomichi, Hancock, Williams, the whole, you know, interconnected roads and trails and the whole system up here. Because at one time, Williams hadn't been open, Tomichi hadn't been open, Alpine Tunnel hadn't been open for a lot of years. All right, so I'm right here at the intersection of Tomichi. We're going to bounce over to Tomichi real quick so I can just check out the landslide, see how it's looking after we opened it a little over a month ago. I always get a lot of questions about Tomichi. People sit over here on this side and go up Hancock, and they'll look across and they'll see the road buried by a landslide. And then they'll constantly put trail reviews. Onyx might be the worst. Onyx still has this listed as closed. There's trail reviews on it that say that it'll never open again, and that's 100% false. And so if you just look over here and look at that, you don't know that we built a road over the slide area. So you're right. If you just look here and you're like, wow, the original road was covered by a landslide, because it is, and it's still there. And it was 20 feet deep. They're not lying. Maybe even up to 30 feet deep. But the road goes over the landslide. So if you want to look at it, drive over there, park at the bottom, and just walk up and look at it and see what kind of shape it's in. Maybe you feel comfortable enough to drive over it. Maybe you don't. So here's the deal. I'm right at the landslide. It's right in front of me. I don't have any other vehicles with me today. I don't have a spotter. I don't have anybody riding shotgun. Haven't been over here in about a month, so I don't know what it looks like. I've driven this 24 times in the last 5 years. But I'm going to get out. I'm going to walk up there, I'm going to take a look, and I'm going to see what it looks like before I drive it. And here we go. This is what I tell everybody. If you're unsure about this at all, just jump out and take a look. Like, I don't know, it looks like it's intact from down there and from looking across, but I haven't been personally on this and looked at it with my own eyes for a little over a month. And, you know, it's no big deal. Looks fine. Still nice and wide. So we'll come up here. I'll go over the top, go up and turn around, come back down. But if you're ever in doubt, just get out for a few minutes, take a look. I mean, look at this view that you get to see if you come out here, stand on top here for a few minutes. So now we'll drive over it. So there you go. We're up above it now. I'm gonna turn around, head back down, go back over Hancock and out. And like I said, we'll talk about the history of closure in the area, but that's what I do. I've been wheeling these mountains since I was a little kid in the back of a Jeep with my dad, my grandfather, and then driving on my own with a Jeep in the mountains since I was 16. And I will still get out and look at something if I don't know what's happened or I'm unsure of something I can't see. So just do that. Just pay attention, get out, make a good call. Then you've seen it, you know what needs to happen, and then you can drive something successfully. So as I make my way back down to the intersection down here, Hancock and Tomichi, I'll go over a little bit of history, and if you've watched our videos, you've probably heard this before. I sound like a broken record, but it's important because in 2019, Chuck Severance and I got together, and at that time, Tamichi was closed because of the landslide. Williams Pass hadn't opened since 2014, and the Alpine Tunnel was damaged in 2016 and hadn't opened since then either. So in 2019, 3 of the main routes over here were closed to motorized use, pretty much all motorized use. Maybe some motos could have used some of these routes, but most everything was impassable. And we thought, what can we do? What can we do as just, you know, users, volunteers, what can we do to try and get these trails open back up? And we just decided that we needed to start somewhere. So we started working on Tomichi. We got permission to come over and do some site visits in 2019. Talking to road engineering, we convinced them we thought we could hand dig a route over the top. And they said, okay, let's see if you can do that. So in August of 2019, we set a project, full day long, 30 people. We hand dug a route over the top of Tomichi. So we got that one back open, and we've come over here at least once every single year, sometimes twice since, to maintain that route, staying open for motorized use. In 2020, we convinced the Salida and Gunnison districts to let us work on Williams with the idea that even if we opened it for its August opening and it was an out and back because the Alpine Tunnel Road was still closed, people would still enjoy that. That was important to us. So they let us do water mitigation work up there. We built a bunch of water bars. We did road brushing, a lot of drainage work. So in 2020, we were able to open Williams Pass. We opened it in 21 and 22. Last year was closed because of Thaddeus's work right there where I showed you where the quarry site was for the stones. But we had got Williams Pass open. And now we stand right at the edge of the Alpine Tunnel Road being fixed. And the Palisade, you saw the video and the pictures, the Palisade is repaired and done. And that's really a pretty big deal. I mean, that's a lot of years, 5 years worth of work, partnerships, grant applications, you know, work contracts, permission, all the stuff to, allow everybody to participate. $1 million going into Alpine Tunnel, so that we could eventually get all this back open. So it is a very big deal. A lot of money coming from a lot of different sources, like I mentioned. And then one thing to remember, that I've talked about this before, but again to highlight it, the date for Williams opening was changed to September going forward. So it always had been August. That was an old agreement with Blue Mesa four-wheelers and the Forest Service. The new travel management set that date back to September. And I actually think it's a good idea, because in 2022, when we opened Williams, it was pretty good in July, but then we had a heavy monsoon in August, and it was so muddy and soupy by the end of August that people were going off trail up there to avoid the mud. And we absolutely can't have that. If we're going to be able to open Williams and continue to do so, we cannot have off-trail travel. And unfortunately, there was some that year. So moving it back to September, September is a very dry month historically for us. The monsoon is usually over. So give us an opportunity to open that road and not have water and mud issues in September. Now, I will reiterate this. I don't know if it will be open at all this year in September. But in the future, that will be the month of opening. So if you see on the map here, I take this off Trails Off Road. I'll talk about Trails Off Road in a moment, because I was the rider for most of these trails around here. And Trails Off Road will have the best, most accurate information you can possibly get for these routes around St. Elmo, Taylor Park, and Pitkin, because we update those as we do volunteer work, as we're out on the trail, and as we talk to the Forest Service. So I talked earlier about Tomichi. If you just look across over there, I'm driving up Hancock now, if you just look across over there, it looks like the landslide covered the road. And I told you how some trail apps have that wrong, and other user reports have that wrong. Trails Off Road does not, because I put up the reports and I manage whether Tomichi's impassable, partially open, or open, the status. So whatever happens on these roads, we update those immediately. And I'm not, I write for Trails Off Road, but I'm not paid staff. I'm not marketing. I don't do any of those things, but I contribute because it's important to get the most accurate information to the public. And somebody was always going to map those trails and ride on those trails, so it might as well be me. And then through our work with CORE, then we can keep everything updated. So if you don't use Trails Off Road and you wonder why your information is not accurate, and why you post online that something's closed and people tell you no, it's not, it's just fine. I watched a video of some guys up there the other day doing work on it. Then I would highly suggest you check out Trails Off Road to make sure you have the most accurate information on roads and trails. Back up on top here on Hancock. That's the update for today. We'll be heading down the other side back into BV. Please be sure to watch our information for future updates so you know everything that's going on.